Hi, I'm Carson Block, and welcome to another episode of Zer0 Fucks Given. I'm joined by my partner at Muddy Waters, Freddy Brick, and Krista DeLuca, also at Muddy Waters. Now, we did have a little bit of a controversy this week with Krista, did we not? You didn't want to do this show.
Which one? Oh, right.
Right, I mean, you said, I don't want to be a fixture.
No.
But we said you are a fixture.
I know, it's not as good if I do it every single time.
Why not? So anyway, look.
Anyway.
I think I want to show our gratitude to you. Get the big money here.
What?
This comes in a plastic.
You don't understand, he never gets me anything, not one thing. Not even during bonus time, nothing.
This is super important. I want you to see just what you're prepared to do, what you mean to this podcast. And this is this is a bad reveal. It's a check from Muddy Waters for $10 million.
Wow.
This is real. Now, you might
Well,
notice.
wait a minute.
It's $10 million.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
We are a
10
big
million.
deal in Vietnam.
So I want you to hold this.
Hold on, Krista Colombo notices this.
Yeah, I didn't say dollars. We have to do a slightly.
I was like, wait a minute.
We have to do a slightly different currency here, but yeah.
What is that in U.S. dollars?
Vietnamese. We'll talk about that later.
No, I want to know right now.
You know, embarrassing.
I want to know how good a job do I have to.
I don't know what the exchange rate is.
Let's get to
What? I mean, is it like $10 or what are we
Which
talking about?
you'll before you formally join the investment committee for Vietnam, this is your bonus. You mean a lot to this show.
Thank you.
Yep.
And as a result, Muddy Waters will be bonusing you 10 million VND, Vietnamese dong.
This can be cashed at Credit Suisse. Who,
Of course.
I actually think we are going to become a counterparty of at some point soon. So we'll probably take the piss out of them just as much. But anyways.
I want to say that this is the nicest thing that you guys have done for me, but I don't know, the cake kind of, that fuck up cake.
The fuck up cake.
Between
The fuck up cake was
that and
good.
I know.
Let's share
But
the fuck
this
up.
is really good.
This is good. So anyway, this is real. This is your bonus. So just say yes, you'll be a fixture on the show, and it's yours.
Okay.
If you say no, it's like I can't honor that check.
Okay, but can you guys seriously tell me what that is in U.S. dollars?
200.
Oh, really? God, I wouldn't have known that.
You mean $200 million?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude. U.S. dollar is pretty strong these days, so no, it's not.
$1,000?
Yeah, So
Thanks,
It
guys.
was more a week ago.
look, just you can tell all your friends. Like, you got 10 million bonus. What the fuck did you get?
Well, I'm not going to have to tell a lot since I have 6 friends and you are 2 of them, and your wife is another one.
I thought you had more friends than I do. 6 is maybe about the same number I have.
Yeah.
Now,
I
you
had a
have
lot more in the last 2 years. I don't know what happened.
Well, you moved to Austin, but
Yeah, that was a big one.
friends in San Francisco, like the Bay Area, are generally kind of lame.
Yeah.
Yeah, like let's.
We're all agreed on that. It's rare we all agree on something, but
It's true.
we're all agreed.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So, but anyway.
Well, thank you for
No, thank you.
that.
No, but in all seriousness, you have gotten some love on your Instagram, right?
Oh, yeah.
Krista
Oh,
DeLuca
yeah.
on Instagram
I
since you started
have.
doing the
Oh,
show.
That's true.
Everybody, please show this
I-
wonderful lady more love on Instagram.
Please.
Yeah.
Tell her that, like you would be happy to give her 100 million VND also if she stays on and does this.
Right.
Or sorry, 10 million. And what's an extra zero?
Wow.
When it's
You look really-
when it's monopoly money, dude. Like, what's an extra zero? So anyway, but yes, please,
for that.
please stay on. Now that said, the next episode in 2 weeks, Freddy is going to be in London.
Yes.
Friends with accents. So it's going to be Soren's going to be here.
Yeah.
So you got to be here too, but you got to feel as comfortable busting his balls as you do Freddy's and mine.
That's going to be like a bottle of vodka.
Well, bottle of vodka, not really, dude. It's not that hard.
Dude,
So,
just start at the top with him and work down.
well, there's the Japanese orphanage where they used to pluck his red
I
hairs
know.
out and study them.
Ooh.
So
Every
we-
time he's here, I think of that story.
dude.
Don't tell him that.
Well, we got to
well.
talk about it. So, yeah. Don't worry, he's probably not watching.
Yeah.
So, all right. Cool. So, great.
So yeah, that's not the only Monopoly money this week, it turns out. It's, what is it, Wednesday today, so probably by Thursday all of crypto will be zero. And I think that's really funny. I don't know much about crypto. Generally, I largely ignore things I don't know about. And in this case, I read one book. In like March 2020, we were feeling like pretty smart about like not being down as much as anyone else. And then, in fact, we made some money. And then the rest of 2020 happened, and we definitely didn't feel as smart. So I took a little bit of time. I read the Bitcoin Standard and was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Not entirely sure what it's useful for, but maybe other people will buy this. So I did what I usually do when I have low conviction in something. I did absolutely nothing. I just sat around and watched it go up.
I mean, you could see that when you have low conviction, that's the moment you should be managing long assets.
This is true. So crypto's blown up, and again, I don't know a lot about it. It turns out you need these stable coins because you can't transact back and forward. Again, not entirely clear to me why that's a thing. Then everything needs to be on the blockchain, although pretty much everyone who has some sort of crypto asset has had some of it stolen, which, like, again, is just not something that happens to me when I go to my...
And not like stolen as in somebody lifted the USB out of their pocket. It's like their crypto wallets.
Exactly.
These things are just sieves. They're, hackers, right? Like going in and taking the money.
And then in addition to that, like, there's all these use cases, which, like, none of them seem to make, like, any sense to me. The only one that I think marginally makes, like, the tiniest bit of sense is the one attached to music rights. Because I once worked, like, when I was really young, an auditor, and they, like, showed me the process of, like, how they audit, like, music rights, and it's pretty manual and crappy. So I was like, okay, I guess that might make sense, but do we need to use like $50 billion of venture capital money just to mean that like George Michael can get paid on his like royalties from Wham? Seems like a bit of
he is dead.
efficient, right? So his estate. Although it does turn out that like, there's a book that they were trying to block in the UK from being published about like how much sex and drugs that guy was happening.
I mean, he once lost his voice because he'd been doing so much coke. Like I heard he literally like was unable to like sing for weeks.
Losing your voice? I thought it's like you lose like your septum. I didn't know you could. Wow.
I don't
a
know.
problem that Hunter Biden's going to have. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to the Hunter Biden thing. But, on the other hand, like, if you're somebody who uses his voice regularly, maybe that does become your problem.
It's a problem. But, yeah, back to crypto. So there was a conference this week, last week in Austin. You could tell because the amount of incels floating around in the non-metaverse was much higher than usual. I mean, you don't often see them out. There was a car that had a Dogecoin wrap on it. I think it was a McLaren with a Dogecoin wrap. There was scantily clad crypto hose at the proper. That was like a very crypto-centric hooker scene.
So I tweeted out about that, right? Like
okay.
So we have a mutual friend who went to the crypto thing, and I don't know that he's given permission for us to attribute the quotes.
Right.
But he had some, like sending us quotes from the stage. But you were the one that I tweeted this out, that you'd been at the proper the night before, and you talked about all the hookers there. So
so like
But
credit.
that's not new there.
It's not new there, but I'll tell you what I've subsequently learned is they do follow the conference scene because like anything, like hotel rooms, like these prices fluctuate.
Right.
So apparently you start the year with a CES in Vegas. Then there's the Dreamforce conference in that shithole that is San Francisco. And then you just kind of like follow around the crypto conferences. So, I mean, it's kind of amazing that like it's such a rational profession in just so many ways. Now,
So 2007, I went to Vegas.
okay.
and I went to the self-storage conference. And I swear to fuck.
Well, it's so similar.
I was looking for the self-stow hose.
I did not expect you to
I
say
did not
that.
see a single self-stow hoe in the whole place.
What the hell?
I just, I was.
What are they, stupid?
I thought they'd be all on these dicks that were there, but no, man, like, just not in evidence anywhere.
I went to the big
What was the
expo.
self-storage conference
Oh,
like? Were the
that's
McLarens parked
fabulous.
outside?
No, it was actually due to have money that's not going to evaporate.
Right.
Although to be fair, in 2008, like there
Things
were
up.
issues. I mean, some of them did get called on their loans, but that's like a very real business, and it was super helpful because we opened up our facility at the end of 2008 in Shanghai, China. 2009, we were the international category self-storage facility of the year.
Okay.
Really?
Well, yeah, but so I had to write an application to the Inside Self-Storage magazine.
And enclose a check?
No.
What's this?
Well, after the award, they're like, "Oh, would you like to buy reprints of the article?" I'm like, no, of course not. But the thing is, like, I mean, the construction phase, like the fit out phase, was such hell. Like dealing with these Chinese construction crews, and so I went into that in my application, and I enclosed this picture of, I think it was late 2008. There was an apartment building that they just built in Shanghai. They were building this big complex of apartment buildings, skyscrapers, and the fucking thing just fell over. The whole building fell over. Jeez. Yeah, like the finished building, so you see like the basement below and the big hole in the ground. And so I used that to illustrate, like, that was built by a construction firm much better than the one I had to manage for this fucker. Like, please, give me some credit for that. So they did. But, look, as an expat, everybody got freaked out living in skyscrapers in Shanghai after that thing fell over. And I was like, guys, it's okay. There was no furniture in that to weigh it down.
I mean, ironically, like, given how much money you lost in the self-storage business, that was a pretty expensive conference trip for you, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, like, all of this is because of self-storage.
This is true.
So I calculated net. I set on fire about $700,000.
Okay.
In self-storage. So like net of the sale proceeds for that business. It's kind of funny because in 2012, somebody came along, Chinese guys wanting to buy the business, and I mean, at that point, I just would have given it away. Like, we had Ministry of State Security officers, questioning our manager and employees, and I kept them isolated from muddy waters. But it was clearly, and also like gangsters showed up looking for me. I mean, evidently these morons didn't like read the whole "I left China" part. But well, I don't know, maybe it's because it was in English, but. But in any event, yeah, like it wasn't tenable. And when these guys came along and they're like, oh, we'll, offer, 120,000, I had to, or whatever, I had to pretend that I cared and like negotiate this, like, no, God damn it, 300. And I think I sold it for like 220. But I mean, I was just praying like that nothing would get in the deal or in the way of this deal, and they would sign that fucker and I could just get rid of it.
See, this is your mistake. If you'd have just held on and burned a little bit more money for another 10 years, D1 could be marking that at $6.8 billion right now. So if you'd just held a little more, lost a little bit more money, you'd have got there.
Okay, so true story, right? Like in 2008, we're going and pitching these venture dudes in Shanghai. It was the Shanghai Angels Club. So all of these guys are basically principals of VC firms in Shanghai and or in China. And I've done a lot of public speaking in my life, and I feel like I'm normally decent at connecting with the crowd. And I was there with my wife Kathy, right? We're in our like love box like shirts with the our logos and shit on it, and we're presenting, and I think we were the second to last to present, and not a single fucking guy was paying attention. They were all there on their Blackberries, like no eye contact, guys just getting up and leaving. It was the worst presentation I had done since third fucking grade. And so we finished up, And the woman who was kind of arranging it, she said right after we finished, oh, please wait in this room, like this broom closet, so you can...
It's like the green room of
yeah, so you can have cocktails with the angels afterwards. Like, they were called the angels. And all right, man, like, sure, whatever, get the angels, right?
These are a bunch of Chinese dudes smoking cigarettes. They look nothing like angels.
Well, they were in the office of Pillsbury Winthrop, the law firm, so they weren't smoking,
Okay.
They were going to the can to smoke. I'm sure that's why they were getting up and, like, just walking out, giving us the Chinese finger. And anyway, so, like, we waited around, and then eventually, she comes into the broom closet or whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm very sorry, but they have all left. Like, my wife was like, what? They didn't want to, and so, of course, they didn't invest. And she was giving us, she said, they said that you were two mamas and papas to invest. And so, like, of course, they did the original version of California Dreamin', so it was like, we had our own song, like, all the boxes are brown and the elephant's gray. But anyway, but the best part of this is, right, I started Muddy Waters a year and a half later, absolutely fucked the Chinese VC industry in 2011 through 2012 or 13. And it reminded me of how Fidel Castro had tried out for the Washington Senators back in the day before he started the Cuban Revolution. And like, history could have been a lot better, I mean, maybe a lot, less close to nuclear Armageddon if they'd signed that fucker to a contract. And so I looked at those guys and I'm like, guys, maybe you should just funded this fucking thing. Because, I did take some money out of your pockets.
Oh.
I'm the Fidel Castro of that bitch.
Boy.
Of China VC.
There
You
you
should have
go.
done it.
Oh, and now Neil Shan is running the whole of Sequoia. That scumbag.
Yeah, actually, whatever I took out of his pocket, I'm sure he found a way to put back in and then some.
Exactly. Oh man, that is funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, not knowing anything about crypto and just going back to the whole VC things, I think one of the comments was like, we saw all this coming. And it's like, yeah, that's why you guys were like pedal to the metal last year, like raising as much as humanly possible.
And deploying capital.
And deploying. I'm just really enjoying the schadenfreude moment here. I think for some bizarre reason, I'm enjoying it more than like the tech funds that have blown up. There is just something particularly fascinating about, like, a guy who, I mean, not Tether, the stable coin that blew up the other week.
Luna.
Luna.
Like a left bicep tattoo.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, like, might have been in scale, like, probably bigger than Madoff, potentially. I mean, and like, the whole model was, like, just a legit Ponzi scheme. Like, when someone explained to me how this yield farming stuff works, so for the first time ever, I looked at what Zer0 was, and I'd only found out about it like 3 weeks before from someone who was offered a job there, which was later rescinded. And the FT, I think just yesterday, did a piece like kind of explaining what Zer0 did. I looked at it and I was like, this is the dumbest business I've ever heard. So you get everyone else to put all their crypto assets in your crypto vault, and then you pay them a yield in your like made up crypto coins. Like, at least when Madoff gave people money back, it was other people's dollars. Like, he had to go to the effort of getting other people's dollars to get more in to give back. These guys are just like, all right, we'll keep your shit coins. We've made our own shit coin that's totally unmoored from anything. Here you go, take one of those, and you have a yield. And this thing was so known to be risky within the crypto industry that some of the people who were borrowing refused to deal with other lenders that had Zer0 exposure. So, like, it was an open secret that this thing was total dog shit. There was a thread I saw yesterday that the chief compliance officer or was an adult film actress or something?
It wasn't the CCO, but it was some other,
Chief
C-level
marketing,
person.
yeah.
Had been in adult film,
Yeah. I mean, that just kind of says
she was
it
in
all.
the arts, big deal.
Exactly. So anyway.
Well, but here's the thing, like, the problem, I think, is going to be that on the back of this, there's going to be all this call for regulation, or there already are calls for regulation, right? And it's like, why would you regulate this? Okay, this was from the get-go it was all fucking air. There's no real asset there. There was no secret. Everybody who was punting on this, okay, was, you know, their whole thinking was like, well, it's going up and I'm just hopefully not going to be the one holding the bag. Like, this is not caused by lack of regulation. It's caused by, you know, like SEC should look across the street, the fucking Federal Reserve. When you hand out this much money, and Congress too with the stimuluses, but you just stick that much money into things, I mean, this is what you get. And look, the crypto and Dogecoin, and you know, like Bitcoin's been around for a number of years doing this. And it was obviously all tulip. Like, there's a small portion of the value that's like gas fees. And the use case, I mean, you've got people who want to launder money, like, okay, that's part of it. And, you know, people who just like don't believe in fiat. But I mean, that value is this versus where it got to. And it's, you know, the central banks just constantly have these fucking blinders on when they create these bubbles. And what really sucks from a market's perspective is when these bubbles blow up, because they were, again, created by monetary fuck-ups, it's like, oh, now we have to regulate stuff. And when they do this, like right now, and we see the SEC doing this, right? Like the swaps, the disclosure of swaps, and they tie that to Bill Huang. Right? They say, oh, well, Bill Huang, you know, did this, and, you know, he choked all these floats because he had these swaps, and he didn't have to disclose. Therefore, we're going to change the disclosure rules and also lower it for activist funds from like 10% to 5%, or something like that. And it's just, look, the system kind of worked, right? Like Bill Huang is on trial, or he's going to be on trial for defrauding the banks. Okay, like they had the systems in place, you know, risk management, that they were getting the real information from arch egos where they would have said, no, dickhead, like you can't go and buy, we're not going to buy XYZ on swap. You don't need to regulate swaps. The DOJ's position is that he broke the law massively and defrauded the banks. So why do you need to impose all this additional regulation? Because the thing that also just bothers the shit out of me, and like, look, when crypto really finally blows and there's all this regulation, it will spill over more into equities and the shit that we do. And it just drives up the cost and it creates all this paperwork and, you know, frankly, makes the business shittier. And then, you know, every now and then, policymakers are going to like wring their hands publicly, like, oh, you know, we're all the small asset managers. Well, fuckers, you put us out of business. You know, so I don't know. That's the thing that really bothers me about crypto. It was like retardation on the way up, but it was obvious. Okay, so it's blowing up. Let it blow up. This is how it's supposed to work. Bottom line.
End of crypto.
You know, and on to the next bubble, right? I mean, like the next time, you know, real rates go, you know, near zero or negative, you'll get the next bubble, but whatever. Like that's, you know, look at those guys, stop looking to promulgate more rules to just, you know, gum up the markets.
But what have we learned about the next bubble? Russian.
Russian? Oh, Russian, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Russian.
Yeah, could be
Listen,
Russian though. We won't be participating in that one if it's sanctioned. But if it's not, who knows? We may be rushing into the Russian bubble. We'll see.
Right. So, okay, like speaking of bubbles, you know, that really implicates risk management. And I got to tell you, dude, like, I have an issue with your risk management.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, like, I cannot believe, so I've got two problems here, but the first is, just from a pure risk management perspective, upside, downside. You made a bet recently.
Okay.
Okay, you somehow, like, this is the part that gets under my skin. You thought that I got a fucking McCann instead of a Cayenne.
Shit, yeah.
Oh.
But your wife, like, knows well enough and was like, he wouldn't get a McCann, he got a Cayenne. That you bet her that if you were wrong and I had a Cayenne, she could peg you. She could put on a strap on and pound you in the ass. He seriously bet this.
Is this true?
This is true.
I mean, like, what kind of risk man? Like, what's the upside down?
I mean, so the question is, did I lose the bet on purpose? I know that's what you're thinking. All right. Did I set this whole thing up as a roundabout way of bringing up something that I kind of always wanted to try? Okay. You know, it's a fair point.
Yeah, like walk me through the upside downside thinking here.
Yeah, so
I just don't get, in addition to what about me makes you think I would get a little fucking roller skate?
So
That's a very fair, good question.
all fair questions.
Both are fair questions.
All fair questions. So starting off, we were many drinks in at this point. Okay, we had some friends around for Friday night. We were many drinks in, and ironically, actually, Zer0 and Andal was over for dinner, and I can't remember which side of the fence he was.
No, Soren took the same side, but he did not wager that he would get pounded in the ass, dude.
Okay,
like he's
so
like, no,
he hasn't been brave
McCann.
enough to tell you what he's wagered. Okay, fair enough.
He swears to me that once you said, "I'll let you fuck me in the ass, Bryn," if I'm wrong, and you look at Soren and he's like.
So Soren actually messaged me in the morning, and I was pretty hungover, not feeling fantastic, and he was like, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "Honestly, man, not great." And he's like, "Oh, I assume you got the news about the pegging then. How was it?"
Yeah, because that night, like he sends me a text at like 11 p.m. Did I get a Cayenne or McCann? I'm like, that's weird, random. I just answered Cayenne, no response.
Oh, nice that he let that play out, because we didn't make the bet until like 12:30. I don't know, but yeah, I guess in my head, like compared to the Range Rover, even the Cayenne is small. So as I look at it in your driveway, I'm kind of like, this is kind of like not that big. So I didn't really think about it in the context of.
But do you know him?
I know. I should have thought about it. I really should have thought about it.
I mean, it's just the upside downside on this, dude. Like,
yeah.
I speak to my little kids all the time. I'm about like upside downside. I just don't get this one.
It was
I mean,
bad
this
upside downside
is
trade. Yeah.
Yeah, like. So,
wow.
You're not allowed to trade drunk anymore.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
fair point.
That policy's changing.
Okay. No more trading drunk.
But so I also looked for another prop right before we sat down here.
Okay.
Because it's so cheesy, but like Porsche sends you a pen and you buy the car and it's got Cayenne written on it. So I handed that to you yesterday. I was like, hey, stick this in your mouth when Bryn goes to town on you. But I wanted to actually have that. But
yeah, the Cayenne
I think
pen
you
is
already
nice.
took it home. Did you?
Yeah,
have you paid the bet yet, or is that
it's on my desk? That's between me and whatever Amazon's delivery policy is. If she wants to, the bet will be paid. I'll need to sit on a pillow as opposed to having one behind me to keep me propped up for comfort. But yeah, that's how you guys will probably find out. Speaking of Porsches.
Wait, speaking of Porsches, I want to know, how was last Wednesday? You went to this Porsche Austin delivery, whatever, experience with Soren Craft.
I thought you were going to call it douche fest.
Well, I was... Thank you very much. I mean, AKA douche fest.
My favorite bit of it.
All.
My favorite bit. You turn up there and it's fucking hot. It's like 105 degrees, and they tell you like turn up at 3. Nothing happens for the first like hour and 20 minutes. You're kind of just sitting around.
Dudes are probably like getting like hard-ons over each other's cars.
So they put like the SUVs and the electrics in one garage, and then the kind of like 911s and Soren's car in the other garage.
Oh, they let Soren into the 911 garage?
Yeah.
They let him play with the big boys?
Yeah,
all
so,
right.
Like a lot of people pulling up in like GT3s and 911s, and Soren has a Cayman, and the guy's like doing his best to save it, being like, that's really cool. I actually really want to buy one of these, so it's great that you turned up in an old one of these. That's really awesome. I'm like, good save. And then there's like an hour-and-a-half conversation with this guy about cars, and I don't know that much about cars, so I'm exhausted pretty quick. I think Soren, you a little bit more than me.
You've got your driving test in a
I know.
Soon,
I was
in August.
just going to mention that.
But I don't think there's a whole section on 1987 Porsche 911s, unfortunately, because I would stand a better chance of passing now. So you do this like hour and a half or so, and then like when everyone's pretty much there, they have this guy turn up who runs the experience. He was like Austrian or German or something, and so he's got like the thick accent. And they start with like safety first and blah blah blah, and he's like, you know, who's been on a track before, and some people with their hands up, and who's here with their new car, and you know, who's been like skiing and whatever. He's coming up with all these things. And then he starts talking about the history of Porsche. And so, you know, they kind of gloss over the 1930s. It's funny how everyone sort of forgets that bit when you're trying to airbrush the atrocities out of the family history. But there's one point when he's like, oh, and the old Porsches, I just love the smell of them. And Sora and I look at each other like, oh, creep.
Dudes with German accents are just, they can be so creepy, man.
Well, we're thinking the first thing this guy is going to do, because, you know, Soren bought his, like, car, it's like a 5-year-old Porsche, he's just going to rush out, make a beeline for his car, get in the seats and be like, oh, this is so good into seams. Like, creepy dude. But you get out on the track, so
So that reminds me of, like, that other activist short seller who's an Austrian dude, right? We had like sandwiches with late at night at a deli in New York, pastrami, and the dude was
creepy.
Overly interest. I mean, like he walked out. We're like, we think he's gonna that half sandwich he took home. We think he's gonna
do something.
Put some extra mayo on it.
Yeah, it was super creepy.
But I don't like what is it about Germans and Austrians that's just so easy for them to be so creepy.
I'll give you a book on the 1930s, and you'll get it from there if you extrapolate forward.
Right, fair enough.
So it's pretty cool though. I'd never driven a car on a track, or driven Soren's car, and I've only ever once driven like stick with a right-hand stick.
Right.
And as we're about to go, I just like reminded Soren of all those things, and he's like, yeah, sure, you can go first, but it was really cool. So they put you in for a couple laps with like an actual train driver
or whatever,
who knows what he's doing and can drive a car fast around a track. And then he like switches over and you're basically like good to go. And, you know, going fast on the straights is really not that exciting. Like the difference between 80 miles an hour and like 120 or 30 or 40 is, it just doesn't feel like particularly a difference. But going through the corners, like there are some times where he's like, no, foot on, and you want to like take your foot off the gas because you're kind of like, you know, you're not driving around the roads like nailing corners with your foot on the gas. And like there were times where I'm just like, oh man, this is like really not intuitive. Or there were corners, they put these little kind of cones on the apex where you're supposed to like aim for and turn. And there's corners where you turn really late or where like the line is just not particularly intuitive. And he's like, no, stay on, don't brake. And I'm like desperate to brake. Like all I want to fucking do is put my foot on the brake. And he's like, no, now. And then like, cause I'm too late, he's like, now. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's pretty amazing that he has that much trust in some retard who's just got in the car with him. And how unintuitive driving around the track is.
It sounds to me like next time you do it, you need to have some drinks first.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, I guess you didn't have like a drink at all to, I mean like.
No, I think that's like pretty strongly frowned upon.
Soren didn't pop open the glove box where he's got a couple flasks.
I'm disappointed.
The only time I have ever seen drinking encouraged around motorsport, I'm not going to shock you, was in China. We went on a friend's bachelor party. We turned up clearly pretty inebriated. There was a full bar laid on as part of the experience. The entire place stunk of gasoline. The only thing in the rule book for safety was that you weren't allowed to wear a scarf, because I think a few weeks before some woman had gone in a scarf, it got like caught in the wheel and like chopped the head off.
Were these go-karts or?
These were like little go-karts.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, there's some things like there are some things that are in China. If you do it, it's like dope, right?
Yeah.
So go-karts, it's just they've got a bar there.
Yeah.
You know, just have all you want.
Sounds fun.
No, totally.
It is.
And the best part is, it's at least when I lived there. It's like driving was such a new experience to Chinese, right? Like we grew up, you know, you got your learner's printed at like 16 or 17. And so I'd heard from some friends who went to a go-kart track once and got totally hammered. That yeah, the person who really got fucked up, I mean, in an accident, wasn't with him. It was like this Chinese chick who just like froze as she was going toward the wall, like ah! Like, you know, full speed into the fucking wall. So, which I can believe because, you know, I've seen the roads there. But yeah, there was something else that was also awesome there. They had this like giant and outside or kind of like western part of Shanghai. They had this beach. It was like a big wave. You know, like a wave pool.
I think I've seen videos.
Yeah, and so like most of the expats would go there like in the warm weather, spring and summer. You know, like every Saturday night they'd have a huge party, just get absolutely blitzed, and yeah, and go in the water with the waves. I mean, the sort of shit where you're like, this could never happen in the U.S. Yeah. And you know, and at the time you're thinking, maybe this place has its shit together. Mm. But, you know, then just like you, when you sober up, you realize...
This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed. So, yeah, that's go-karting in China for you.
Well, I mean, and the Porsche event,
and the
Porsche
Porsche
Fest.
experience.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
did you see people that you knew there?
I didn't, although we, at one point, like when all these guys were perving over each other's cars... And the average age of people who own GT3s is probably north of like 55, I think. And I did say, I was like, you know, if you just kind of took a photo of this and you airbrushed out all the Porsches, this would be like the caption competition winner would probably be micro penis convention. I think
exactly.
You got that vibe for sure. So
nice.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, like guys like going over and like looking at each other's cars and like a leering man. Oh, did you get the? Yeah, I got that. Oh, it's cool. How do you like that? Yeah, I really like the way it feels. Oh, great. It was super creepy. Anyways,
okay. Well,
so yeah.
Glad I gave my spot up to Swan. All right, cool. So, listen, one of the other recent debates we've had is about 2024. You know, I mean, politics in 2024, presidential election, a lot at stake. And you and I don't agree on this one.
We don't at all.
So
when you look at the big political families, we just don't agree on who should win.
Yeah, so my contention is that it would be a pretty even matchup, Don Jr. and Hunter Biden going head to head in a coke and hooker binge. Like I don't know who would win that.
So this,
but you feel like there are clear advantages here.
So I think for me, I look at it in soccer terms, and I don't know if this reference will mean anything to you, but
yeah, like kind of a Robbie
there
Williams
was
type of reference here.
Correct, something of great cultural significance. There was a footballer called Frank Lampard. He played for England and Chelsea, was very, very successful, but genuinely, like throughout his career, like people used to call him like Fat Frank because he just had one of these like body types that like wasn't naturally athletic looking.
Wasn't because he had a big penis?
Not that I'm aware of. But I will Google that on a work computer for you. And
that's cool.
And
My friends of the government will see the search.
I see Frank Lampard as Don Jr. And in that respect, what do I mean? Frank Lampard was a good professional footballer, but he took it so seriously and, you know, studied everything to the like maximum of his ability. And he probably got of the talent required that like existed in him, God-given, which you don't believe in, he probably got 99.8% of as good as Frank Lampard could be on a soccer pitch out there versus Neymar, okay, who is just like a God-given footballing talent. Like, you know, regardless of whether he turns up for practice or not, he's going to walk onto any team on the planet. In fact, he takes partying so seriously that they've noticed that every single year he is magically injured around his sister's birthday and he flies back to Brazil and parties hard. And in the off season, he takes this like villa with like 30 chicks and some of the boys and he parties extra hard. And he just doesn't care. He's like, look, I'm the top, like, one of 4 or 5 guys on the planet. Like, I don't care if I'm the number one. I don't need to beat Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi. Like, the talent that exists in me is just, like, it's God-given. So I look at Hunter Biden in that ilk. So for me, the question is, if Don Jr., on his best day, catches Hunter Biden on a come-down day, it's an even match. But if he comes across Hunter Biden in his mercurial 40-day bender in Las Vegas, followed by, and this is some Pulitzer-winning Daily Mail journalism, genuinely the longest article I have ever read on the Daily Mail. We'll get the link. It's really worth reading. It discusses Hunter Biden's post-coital farting and his penchant for leaving the room to get breakfast, specifically croissants, while leaving sex workers with stockings on their head, unclear whether they were or were not tied up. It really depends when you catch that guy. Like, so for me, that's the question. It's not can Don Jr. beat Hunter Biden, but it's whether things need to line up for Don Jr. to do it. Because if Hunter Biden turns up on his day, no competition for me. Absolutely no competition.
See, I don't know. I think they're both. I think they are both like the two of the most talented coke and hookers people in America, anyway, if not the world. Like, I don't know. I mean, does America, like, would America lead the world in coke and hookers?
You gotta excel people in Asia who work in finance. I think that's its own category. Maybe not.
I don't know, dude. I mean, you know, like that's maybe what, a 3-4 night a week thing, like the hooker part in Asia. Probably. I feel like for Hunter and Don Jr., it's like 7 nights a week.
Well, Hunter, this again, it's the difference. For Hunter, it's clearly a multiple thing. It's not just like one at a time.
Well, Don too, but so here's the thing. Like, I think you're underestimating Don Jr.'s talent, and I think it's because Don Jr. learned how to get away with shit from his father. Mm-hmm. That's what I think the difference is. Hunter, I mean, you know, like, holy fuck, like, you don't even try. Like, I don't know if, like, you know, maybe that's also looking at kind of the patrimonial lineage here, right? Like, his father, Joe Biden, just makes gaffes left, right, and center. That's been his whole thing. So Hunter Biden's grown up with the, yeah, whatever. You can, you know, like, who cares? You know, they'll forgive you for it. Thanks, Dad. So, you know, Don, it's kind of like, you know, no, you fucking moron. Like, no, you don't let him, you know, you find people to do that for you, you know? Like, go use, you know, Alan Weisselberg as your condom, you stupid fuck. So that's, you know, like, I think that's the only, I think they're both talented. I want to see that matchup in 2024. I want to see Don Jr., Hunter Biden, head to fucking head, coke and hookers. Let's let that determine the outcome of the presidential election. Because nobody's going to agree on an actual vote. Like, let's be clear about that shit.
That's true. Okay, if that's the case, I think the starting gun on that has to be the Iowa State Fair. Let's just see who's standing by the final ribbon.
Well, I mean, like, let's give these guys some credit here. They're taking down, like, you know, prime Vegas talent. Like, not, you know, like, I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of probably crypto, you know, talent on the market at that point in time. I'm not.
You mean Novogratz will be selling his ass? Sorry.
He'll at least be selling, like, the, you know, the armpit there, right underneath the bicep of the Luna tattoo. But yeah, like, I want to see this as a real competition. I don't want them having to do Iowa coke and Iowa hookers. Like, the Des Moines pro scene is not, like, let's get these guys, you know, it's the fight of the century, right? Like, you know, Ali Frazier, like, get them.
Well, I guess, look, hopefully if we're going to relax sanctions on Venezuela, which is basically a narco state, Hunter can pop over and pick up some primo coke for the competition. Hopefully a 747's enough.
No, but there's dude, I mean, you know, the government's always, like, doing, you know, sanctioning experiments on, like, a limited number of lucky people. You get to do, like, government drugs and government grade weed and probably coke too. So I don't know, like tap the strategic, reserve of coke and let these guys go at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to solve it.
There we go, man. Like, again, if it's a vote, I mean, that's anachronistic, man. Nobody will agree on that. The only way America will rally behind the next president if it's determined by Hunter and Don Jr. going head-to-head, coke and hookers. It's the only result people will accept. Like, who, basically...
Makes sense.
Yeah, who is the last person to, like, have a heart attack is the point.
Okay, which brings us nicely to the health part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
So we were hanging out the other day. I was invited round for Robbie Williams' rendition and pizza, and Carson, it turns out...
You debased my karaoke machine with Robbie Williams.
Carson, it turns out, was not going to have pizza, which is fine. He had decided he was going to order a meatball sub, also fine. What I questioned was the rationale behind ordering the meatball sub. The rationale for that was it's healthier.
Well, did you eat the bread?
Yeah, but there's less bread in that.
I mean,
than,
well,
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Than the
There's
crust.
more meatball, cheese, and sauce than
there's
there
not
is.
more, there's not more cheese. There's less cheese, less bread than I would have eaten
Is there?
if
I feel like a sub is like
I know.
a bun with like, I don't know.
The calories in the meatball sub are much more skewed toward protein and away from carbs.
You're right, because mincemeat is by far the best quality meat. They don't fill mincemeat with anything like fat.
I did paleo, and I remember seeing an Italian sub in there. I was like, well, it's paleo, so it's good.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
It's not pizza.
And we did talk about how that pizza is so good,
good.
home slice, but it's so salty.
Yeah.
Like every time I've had it, I wake up, and you said the same thing, wake up in the middle of the night, like parched, have to have water. Didn't have that issue with the meatball sub. And I brought that up too. I said, I think there's less sodium in this. And again, like the caloric content is more skewed toward protein, not the bad shit.
So next week,
Meatball sub
Carson has agreed he is going to put this to the test. Similar
it's like
to
that guy who did
Super Size Me. Yeah. So he is going to eat a meatball sub for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we're going to see how he feels. And if he feels terrible, it turns out that meatball
are you going to do it for like a week or 2 weeks?
So like,
well, then the following week he's going to eat pizza, and we're going to see how much weight he puts.
So like further to my upside downside comment, I never agreed to this. Freddie is making that up. But I guess the other thing I could say if I played along for a second is, well, at least I'm not agreeing to have it shoved up my ass.
Fair point. And on that, we'll move on to guys getting it shoved up their ass. So once again,
short sellers in this case, of course, because because good news is bad news and bad news is bad news.
Exactly. So more news on the tape about hedge funds. It turns out that D1 took on some leverage.
Different time.
Yeah,
shit.
Don't worry.
Okay, never mind.
You guys are messing me up.
Yeah,
no.
Really messing up.
Okay.
So anyway, more news about hedge funds. Markets are down, although today they weren't, which was fun. But turns out D1 took some leverage against their privates, which is amazing because we can't get that. So it's somewhat befuddling to us that people could think a private mark that you've made up is better than loaning against like a liquid fund that actually mostly sits in cash. But anyway, that is the choice one private bank made. And
More than one.
Yes, and
more than one.
It's also nice to see that like right at the end of this tumultuous boom, high net worth got like totally stuffed with Tiger and Kotu and all these guys, new funds like that. That should have been a sign. Like I think throughout history, whenever something is being offered through a private bank, basically everyone with a brain in the investment industry has passed on it. I mean, I think Olam were able to get that bond issuance done, or maybe it was either
no.
Noble or Olam.
Well, no, like
Probably both.
Yeah, both. The private banks in Singapore were
Yep.
doing these like unrated bonds.
Yep.
You know, they were just stuffing the private banking clients with them. In the case of Olam, to be fair, it was money good.
Yep.
Case of Noble
Was not.
was not.
Yeah. So if you are watching this and you have a private bank account with one of the venerable institutions, you'd probably be better off in crypto.
Well, and one of them, and I'm, you know, for reasons obvious to us, I'm not going to say the name, but one of them was quoted in this article that recently about the leverage that D1 and got, and well, actually not the leverage D1 got, but funneling investor capital into Tiger funds. They said that they have a 200-year track record of creating value for their customers. And, you know, like, I guess if I got blown up in a Tiger fund that they stopped me with, I'd say, well, if you did that in 1916, bro, I'd be okay with that shit. Not right now.
Yeah. So, anyways, so more carnage in hedge fund world.
Yeah. So so yes, it's a nice time to feel a little schadenfreude. Although, like every piece of shit, like company that we were short today, you know, ripped like 7-8%. So, but how did the baskets largely keep up there, or?
Typically, if a shit goes up 8%, a basket's up
Like
4.5
6?
to 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not as many shit goes on our shit co baskets.
Yeah, because we take out all the frauds when we get the basket, like
stupid.
to hedge.
Very
Yeah, no.
stupid.
Why would we got to stop taking out the frauds from our long side hedges?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts about the Fed is hiking 75 basis points?
What do you think?
That's my question. What do you guys think?
But what do you
Good
think?
answer. Good answer. Put him on the
Well,
spot. He
I-
doesn't know shit about the
I
Fed.
know.
I was
wanna
hoping, I was
know.
hoping you'd spit your drink out.
No.
No, that was my whole. That's where I thought Freddy was going. I thought he was like kind of stealing your lead a moment ago. So I was saying, yeah, like
Wouldn't do
from
that to
when
you.
you're short, you know, like good news is bad and bad news is bad. So yeah, they announced they're hiking 75 bips and that they don't see future hikes like this. So the market ripped.
Yeah.
Although to be honest,
fair.
they might, right? Like they might, like inflation might come back in. You've got huge inventories apparently at retailers. Even cars now are not selling as well. And then all these people are holding shit coins. They're gonna have to get back to work. So you can maybe actually get like an Uber or a waiter or waitress in the restaurant. So those things will help keep a lid on inflation.
So I agree with that. I guess what I think is going to be really interesting is that kind of wealth effect and how that impacts demand. Because, the one thing about crypto is it might have been massively inflationary because actually a lot of retail is in these shit coins. And I don't care what anyone says, like people look at mark to market and they kind of believe that is in the bank, and a lot of executives at tech companies who have been massively haircut on their stock or restricted stock packages, like they're going to be feeling a lot poorer. I mean, if you thought that on paper you were worth 50 million and now you're worth like generously 15, that's still a lot of money, but you are going to be feeling a lot poorer. And so I do wonder how the stock market sell-off, the crypto market capitulation, and that kind of mindset really, in addition to like inflation in prices, really becomes like somewhat self-fulfilling. And then even if you do get somewhat of a tapering in inflation, like already the mindset's changed of the purchasing population. And so let's say, okay, a car isn't going to be like 10% more expensive next year. The investor confidence and the consumer confidence has been damaged so much that it's somewhat of a negative feedback loop. So
you're talking deflation?
I don't know so much deflation. It's just I wonder how much consumer confidence has been damaged by the wealth effect that's.
Well, that's about,
deflated.
but that's what I'm saying. Like it may be the inflation, maybe is or has actually finally peaked, in part because the sell-off and all the in all the speculative assets, the reversal of the wealth effect. I mean, I'm not making that call because it's not what I do. And I don't know, even for the guys who, fuck it, I don't know, they're always wrong anyway. So inflation has peaked. I'm making the call. Our forecast calls for inflation second half of 2022 to average in the U.S. 5.3%.
There you go. And look, worst way, if this doesn't work, you can just edit it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll know like probably by November, December whether that's a good call.
Exactly.
Should we bleep it out or just like wholesale take that segment out?
We'll just edit it to make you right.
No, I'll just like put the same shirt and shit back on, sit down, and like give the real number, and you know.
True.
That's there's, I mean, not selling like investment products based on that. So sure, man, fuck it. So when you're watching this, if it's after like November of 2022, you'll never know whether I really said what you think I just said or not.
Cool. On that note, I think we've covered everything important in the world.
Pretty much.
And that's how you fail and set sail.
Fail and set sail.
Cheers.
Cheers.